Hey everybody, welcome to Cut, Transform, Glue, and let's finally finish this carrier drone right here, shall we? Let's jump right into the build. So this is the piece of wood I've used to create the base. I've been using it all along the project. It might seem like it is too small, but I kind of want it like that. I want a small footprint to reinforce that tower aspect of the build. Now I'll make sort of a valley right here in the middle, and it'll be kind of higher on the right side. I drew some topology lines, the kinds of lines you see on architectural drawings, and this right here is the lowest point of the base. I want the right side to be like 2 or 3 centimeters tall. And to create these steps to make the valley, I'll use some plywood to begin with. Using my jigsaw, I made the first shapes of the topology outside of camera to avoid dusting all my shop. And those were glued with CA glue on the top of the gray base, and then I used some screws to reinforce it. And then I grabbed my router and I kind of did some extra steps to make my life easier when shaping the valley, which I did using my Dremel tool. This right here is the result. Now I'm not looking for perfection right here, I'm just making my life easier, because on top of that wood, to seal it all up, I'll use this material that I hate, that is car body filler. And the reason I hate this is because of the smell. It is very strong. So yeah, I also did that outside and I sealed it all up, and this is the result now. My idea right here is to prepare the surface to receive a coat of epoxy, which is this thing right here. And I chose to work with epoxy because my idea is to kind of sculpt, to model the epoxy putty on top of the card body filler and kind of give it the ground texture. Epoxy putty is a much easier material to work with than the card body filler. So yeah, to make the texture, I'm using a hardened brush that I have. I'm also using a lot of alcohol because it actually kind of thins the epoxy putty down, and I'm also using a rock that I grabbed outside of my house to create the texture, and I think it works super good for that. And the thing that I discovered during that process is that it works better if you kind of combine different textures from different materials. So for instance, you can use the back of a brush, some sandpaper, and maybe even your fingers. All of that randomness will add up, and the end result is much better. But for the middle of the road, for the valley, I decided to mix some epoxy with alcohol and create sort of a mud going all over it. After a while, this right here is the result. I have a rough texture on the sides and sort of a mud on the middle. Alright, so now let's paint this baby, shall we? Beginning with a red primer, as this is closer to the dirt color. Now for the grass though, the only model making grass I have access for cheap right here is this stuff right here, which is actually just some tinted tiny wood chips. Probably not the best grass choice out there, but the best one I could find for cheap right here where I live. After a while, this right here is the result. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the process of gluing the wood chips with the CA glue was very hard on my nose. If you work with CA, you know that the fumes it kind of release when it's curing is very annoying. Also, the colors are way off, and so yeah, I'll begin painting it with some acrylic paints. I've mixed a ton of brown colors to go on the ground and to make the dirt more realistic, but I also made a ton of green colors to go all over the grass. This right here is the result, and it made the whole thing much better, but as you can see it was still too shiny, so I applied a coat of matte varnish to bring every color down. After the matte varnish was set though, it was still a bit too shiny, so I actually decided to use my dry pastels to kind of bring the shine down and also add more colors and more detail to the ground. After the dry pastels, I actually added like a couple of rocks here and there to add more detail to the base, but now it's time to work on the robot to give it a pose on that base. Now, when I decided that this drone was going to be a carrier drone with tons of luggage on its head, I felt it would look cool if it was kind of tipping over, and so deciding on a pose was not a trivial thing to do. But eventually I got there, and when I did, I decided to glue each joint of each leg so I can keep the original pose when I'm showing my model. And I also had to drill a hole, actually 4 holes on the base, because at the bottom of each feet there's an M4 nut, so I can catch it from the bottom with a bolt and keep the pose nice and secure right there. And just so each feet lays flat on the base, I had to remove some of the grass using this wood cut tool right here. And so this is it, the small carrier drone journey is finally over, and this is the result. Now, if I'm being 1000% honest right here, I still need to add like a few cables here and there, and so next week I'll release like the full build cut here on YouTube, including these details. If you want to check some high resolution pictures of this build, head over to patreon.com/cuttransformglue. Right there you'll not only find some cool extra content, but also you'll be helping this channel to keep going. And as always, thanks for watching.